Hello and good afternoon. A warm welcome to everyone who joined us for today's webinar. My name is Heman and I am a Research Associate at South Asia Research Institute for Minorities. I am thrilled to be presenting this webinar, SARIM Advocates for Methods that Reduce Lethal Discrimination, Improve Educational Quality and Empower Minorities. SARIM is a non-profit organization whose aim is to end hatred, violence and intolerance finally. We will talk about the emerging Dalit voices in South Asia today. As you may be aware of, untouchable voices have developed in South Asia throughout the decades, questioning prevailing social, economical, political and cultural concerns. Caste discrimination and Dalit voices are most severe human rights issues in the world today, adversely affecting more than 260 million people worldwide. The majority of people suffering from caste discrimination are Dalits or untouchables living in South Asia. The caste system is a strictly hierarchical social system based on underlying notion of purity and pollution. Those on the margins of society known as Dalits face discrimination in many aspects of life, resulting in violation of wide range of fundamental human rights including legal, social and other concerns. Dalit in caste affected countries are becoming more aware of their rights and are standing up for them in a different ways. Dalit human rights defenders have formed organizations that work against caste discrimination and promote the rights of Dalit. Some people operate on national level while others concentrate on grassroots activism and network development concerns. Along with the International Solidarity Network, Dalit group lobby at the international level. The more outspoken Dalit grow, the more violence and abuse they endure, partially in their own communities. Moving forward, we have a great speaker roster. Let me give you a quick rundown of who they are. Professor Dr. M.S. Pagare, Mr. Pag, Dr. Archana Singh, Ms. Ruchira Gupta and Ms. Medha Patkar are our speaker. Professor Dr. M.S. Pagare, Head Department of Education and Director of School of Language Studies and Research Center at KBCNMU University in Jalgaon, Maharashtra, will be our first speaker. With 17 years of teaching and 19 years of research experience, he is an authority in his area. In 2002, the Mahatma Phule Social Award was given to Pagare by the Dalit Santhya Academy in recognition of his outstanding contribution. Ambedkarism for literature, Dalit literature, humanism and criticism are some of his research interests. Now I would like to invite Dr. Pagare. Thank you very much for joining us today. Over to you, Dr. Pagare.
I give the very much wishes to all of you for this international webinar. South Asia Research Institute for Minorities, and the title of this webinar is Emerging Dalit Voices in South Asia. It is a great privilege for me to deliver the keynote address before you all the dignitaries. And now it is very essential to discuss this topic, search and research this topic. In the era of in South Asia, we have to identify the country. I think 5 countries are there: India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. In all over the globe, the discrimination is there. But as a Dalit, now this word is banned in our country, in India, because Dalit is the abuse, someone abusing to other. Dr. Ambedkar had done a lot of tasks, lot of mountain work for the broken man. The substitute word is the broken man for the Dalit. Hence, I think they should change all the scenario of well-being of the human being. Hence, there should be a judicious outlook. Actually, the whole society consists of human beings. The social platform should enhance judicious outlook for human beings. We find many traditions, cults, and gender discrimination from time immemorial in India as well as in all over the globe. The discrimination made by one man to other should vanish, and cultivation of thought for equality should be nurtured as well. To cultivate a healthy environment in society, it is responsibility of every person. As a human being, we should promote rational thinking in all over strata of society. Many times we find discrimination between the upper class and downtrodden people, between men and women, between two different religions, cults, segments, the rich and the poor, etc. All these kinds of perversity need to vanish from society. It is an urgent need of the honor of established democratic values. Equality and fraternity in the society. Those who are considered as idols in the society and messengers of various religions should show path of humanity which is rational. The history shows that they always had ambitious outlook and cultivated good mindset of the people in society, maintain healthy environment in society. We find there many things which are not real and are yet associated with religion. When I started my keynote address, I told that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar had done a lot of work for the broken man, and his idol were Lord Buddha, Mahatma Phule, and with him, the task work in India, a field task work had done by Rajarshi Shahu Maharaj, Mahatma Basveshwar, Sant Gadge Baba, and Nyamurti Ranade, Maharshi Vitthal Ramji Shinde, etc. I have written the book on Mahatma Phule, literature and its impact on society. Who was the real hero to manage the discrimination between men and women, rich and poor, and all the state of life. Mahatma Phule was one of the eminent revolutionary thinkers of all times. Unfortunately, he did not have means to change the social structure against which he offered lifelong resistance. Yet he initiated an approach to be adopted by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar half a century later. He was well aware of the oppressive events in the world history and had dedicated one of his books to the good people of the United States of the sublime, disinterested and sacrificing devotion towards the cause of racial equality and social justice. with judicious outlook, there should be the cultivation of thought, and along with it is very essential the progressive thought. But in the hidden changes, in the hidden background of this progressive thought, I always promote or search that the rebellious thought are always in progressive thought. Actually, there are various opinions about this rebellious thought because various people who belongs to various culture and religion, they are thinking that the rebellious thoughts are very bad for humanism. But I think rebellious thought is the way towards the humanism through the progressive thinking. Rebellious thought mostly consists with humanism. They tried to establish the existence of those people who did not get freedom. It means they did not equality on social platform, fraternity, social justice, and so many things to exist as a human. Many people think that the rebel is dangerous. Many people are afraid of the rebels' thundering voice and their aggressiveness, but they only cry for existence of human being based on equality. Hence, it is not entirely true that the rebel is fighting without reason. Actually, the rebels are demanding human rights through their fights. It is very essential that to be a human should be the only identity and every individual. Every individual should get respect as a human being in all over the globe. Problems should be vanished from the life of the rebel. The oppression and violence should be vanished. The oppressive, tyrannical personality should be punished. Then the despotic must be stopped on the path of human face. Can we find fraternity and equality in society? We surely get the negative answer. We find many cultural religions thought for the establishment of human being, well-being for human being, but there are many misdeeds, very many imaginary thinkings. I have some points here. As a survey, I observed here Pakistan, India, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. These are the references from various author and case studies are here. I go through this case studies in very short and brief. Dalits in Pakistan, officially termed, it is, I would like to say, the reference is Zulfikar Shah. Is if today's convener, Dr. Khuram, had written before this his research paper, then I will definitely refer that his paper. But I refer this Zulfikar Shah, and his opinion also very clear. Officially termed scheduled caste Dalits are mostly part of the Hindu minority and all victims to double discrimination of the basis of their religion and their caste. According to the researcher, no reliable official data on the number of Dalits exists. And he gave some, given some numerical, some calculation here. Poverty among Dalits in contemporary Pakistan is rampant, and education and health statistics leave Dalit at the bottom of society. Both in rural and urban industries, Dalits are exploited grossly as a workforce. In the Sindh and Punjab provinces, the majority of Dalits live as bonded and forced laborers enslaved by landlords. This is the situation of Dalits in Pakistan. What is in India, I would say later on. What is in Nepal, Krishna Bhattajan says about that, about 47% of Dalits in Nepal live below the poverty line. 47%. They are landless and suffer from poverty to a much greater extent than the dominant caste population. The Dalit movement has over the past decades challenged the exclusion of Dalits in the decision making and development process in Nepal. The interim constitution indicates a degree of success for Dalit movement in securing some constitutional provisions for non-discrimination, equality and protection. And so, in Bangladesh, Mr. Chaudhary said, caste hierarchies and discrimination permeate both Muslim and Hindu populations in Bangladesh and propagate the poverty trap the country is caught in. Dalits live on an amount far below the poverty line with extremely limited access to health and education services and are almost inclusively employed in the service sector. In urban areas, they suffer from very poor housing condition and lack of employment opportunities. Most Dalits have no formal education except a few 1-2 years of education in formal and non-formal education, or a very negligible number of graduates from primary, high schools and colleges. This is the situation. And in Sri Lanka, caste heritage are present in the Sinhalese as well as the Sri Lankan and Indian Tamil population. While many low caste Sinhalese have managed to overcome their disadvantaged position through the Sri Lankan welfare state, the Tamil Dalits or lower castes have seen their struggle overshadowed by the Sinhalese Tamil divide. A caste discrimination is still entrenched in society. More than 150 years of social exclusion and the restriction of mobility for Indian Tamil population workers indicates that the caste blind policies of both state and non-state actors, including international agencies, do not adequately address caste discrimination in Sri Lanka. Primarily, studies suggest that proportionally to the generical population, lower caste constitute a large number of IDPs in Sri Lanka, who are also the most vulnerable group subjected to dual discrimination on the basis of ethnicity and caste in camps. I would now put my point, the caste system of India. You can see here the imaginary thinking in India. There is Varna system in India. People are divided into 4 Varnas. It means classes. These Varnas classes are Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudras. In the 19th hymn of 10th mandala of Rigveda, there is a famous Purusha Sukta. The discrimination, I pointed here, the point of that discrimination, the main point. It prepared then established people's law. Its laws were vested by self-interest. Hence, it made discrimination among citizens. I have written the book Mahatma Phule's Literature and its Impact on Society. There I took this reference from Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's book, and 16 points are there. I don't want to read all these 16 points because his time will lost them. But one to point I would say here, Purusha has 1,000 heads, 1,000 eyes, and 1,000 feet. Every side enveloping the earth, they overpassed it by a space of 10 fingers. Purusha himself is this whole universe. Whatever has been and whatever shall be. He is the Lord of immorality. I will put one point now as at 12. The Brahmin was his mouth. The Purushas. The Brahmin was his mouth. The Rajanya was his arms. Rajanya was his arms. The Vaishyas were his thighs. And the Shudras were his feet. These are very imaginary points here, and till now, it is in the mind of the society, in the society of India. The 10th mandala of Rigveda, along with its hymns, are totally imaginary and false. But based on Varna, the system is being reflected into the society, and it is harmful to the culture and the school of thoughts. Like Rigveda, many supportive documents are written by the established people. And this Rigveda is the point, the beginning point, and then again, the established people have written the books. They are different from others, and they are gods on this land. They restricted other people from reading and learning, and always did injustice to them. Which are the document? Various stratas and sutras and smritis ignited the discrimination in India. Those are Apastamba Dhamma Sutra, Apastamba Dharma Sutra, Vashishta Dharma Sutra, Vishnu Smriti, Manu Smriti, and Narad Smriti. That Manu Smriti is ignited the misdeeds all over the India. Hence, in 1927, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar burned the Manusmriti. All the smritis and sutras are books that support discrimination. It shows the sorrow. It shows the sorrow and taste in a human life. The fourth Varna, Shudra, is deliberately insulted by upper class. But there is fifth Varna, which was of untouchables, and they broke men. The broken men are called as Antya, Antyaj, Antyavashi, Antyavashi. Untouchable means the broken man. This is the situation in South Asia of the Dalits. Actually, in India, the word is banned because it is abused. The substitute word is broken man. Hence, I think there should be the judicious outlook, cultivation of thought. There should be the progressive thought with rebellious thought. Then something will be changed through this webinar and seminars and all these things. At the conclusion, I would say judicious outlook is very important to support the culture which enhances humanity into the society. People should be educated. The education should be taken not only to obtain degrees, but also to enhance the moral responsibility. Cultural ethics are imparted through education. So education is related to beard, but it related to beard and butter. Judicious outlook should emerge as moral responsibility to enhance the culture. The discrimination should be removed from the society. The discrimination should be removed from the society. The religion, caste, cult, gender, etc. should be vanished based on the school of thought and cultivation of thoughts. The principles of secularism, freedom, fraternity, social justice, and equality should be observed. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Dr. Pagare, you have really explained it in very depth. Systematically, due to the interaction of caste, class, and gender, Dalits are subjected to direct and structural violence. Specifically, the structural violence and lack of access of resources precipitate their poverty and undermine their dignity. Thank you for voicing your opinion, Dr. Pagare. Our next speaker is Medha Patkar, as she has to leave somewhere, so she will be talking now. She is a social activist who works on a variety of important political and economical issues that affect tribals, Dalits, farmers, laborers, and women in India. Patkar is well recognized across the world as the head of the Narda Bachao Andolan, one of the world's most prominent environmental movements. She also created the National Alliance of People's Movements, which now includes over 250 grassroots civil, political, and social rights organizations. Casteism, communalism, and other types of discrimination are all challenged in her writing. Ms. Medha Patkar, please share your thoughts and experiences with us.
The topic that you have chosen for this dialogue and deliberation is very, very critical. In the today's world, when the coronavirus is so talked about, we must not forget that casteism is the virus that is really killing our Dalits, our brothers, our sisters. 6 of them are raped every day, and 56,000 face atrocities. 1,000 face sheer violence. And every 15 minutes, a crime occurs against the Dalits. Hence, in spite of the Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar's devotion and also its reflection into not just Article 17, but many, many articles that assert fundamental rights and also direct the state to follow certain principles, which include equity and fraternity. Even today, after 7 full decades of independence, Dalits in India are facing the discrimination, which is violation of every single human right. And hence, when we assert women's rights are human rights, we also have to assert Dalit rights are human rights. And that is because Dalits are not just untouchables. Dalits are not just outcasts. Dalits include all those sections who are discriminated and excluded from the so-called development, so-called progress, so-called global to local goals and visions, and the plans, of course. So it is even today need to understand what is it that the Dalits are facing and how is the state really responding to or taking cognizance of that situation, which is worse than any other discriminated, disadvantaged community. It is necessary to understand that when in 1956 Baba Saheb took up the whole movement as if it was a freedom movement for Dalits, which he was sure would not be achieved merely by political independence or freedom. And hence, even after the constitution came to become the basis for the legal regime, he wanted a strong movement to really attain the space, role, and right to live with dignity for the Dalits. And that is yet to be achieved. It is shameful for all of us who are alive and yet have not been able to reach the domain of caste annihilation, nothing less than that. And yet, today, as Mr. Pagare has very, very diligently put forth, based on various researches, this situation is not only in India, but even across the world and beyond South Asia, which is the present webinar's context. In California also, when a suit had to be filed against a company where the Dalit engineers coming from India or South Asia countries were discriminated. It is to be understood that in India, there are umpteen number of forms of discrimination that still exist. And that is having an effect on the Dalits as workers, Dalits as agriculturists, because agricultural laborers are also agriculturists, Dalits as dwellers in the poor localities, slums, Dalits as women, obviously, just caste, but class, gender, and also all kinds of discrimination. It is therefore necessary to understand that we have to, in today's context, take up not just issues, but the sectors in which Dalits continue to face discrimination, maybe in newer and newer form, and fight the Dalit movement. No doubt in the later part of the movement that was partly America, but also they could really widen the vision transformation as the goal to be attained with the Dalits at the forefront and Dalits as given primacy. And still we are far from that goal and vision. And why so? We see that in the workplaces where Dalits are the workers, the builders as construction workers, producers of agri-produce as agricultural laborers, and Dalits are still forming the large section of migrant workers and contract laborers. Now, why so? Because the landlessness as well as the marginal resourcelessness is something that the Dalits face much more than any other community in the agriculture sector. And then they start walking distances in lockdown pandemic for up to 1,500 to 2,000 kilometers. When we stopped them and compelled the state last phase to put them in the vehicles, railways to buses, it was really a task that was not so easy, because the migrant workers are not just Pravasi Mazdoor, They are hung working class, which is not even recognized, which is not even registered, which does not have a place and space on the records of the officials, so on and so forth. And hence, this 95% working class, which is considered in an insulting manner as unorganized or informal, but are indeed unprotected class, do not only are excluded from the benefits of pension or provident fund, but they are also not receiving any small benefit that would fulfill the basic needs of the families and will not really be compelled them to migrate. The employment generation that is considered as a global task to be followed, and the Vishwa Gurus to the globalized states really consider themselves as in the process of giving employment. We know very clearly that the contract laborers are out, kicked, even during the pandemic. When Ratan Tata had to make a statement yesterday that it is immoral to retrench workers when we are facing the unemployment crisis. But no one is bothered about this. So the Dalits who are in the contract laborers again face the worst. There is necessary, therefore, to have a labor movement which will certainly not accept repeal of the 29 labor legislations which came up as a result of the struggles by the workers, including Dalits, over 7 decades. And now those are being repealed, and the 4 codes will not give the same status as the other laborers for the contract laborers, and the Dalits would face the worst. It is very clear that even in the agriculture sector, now when the farmers' movement is on, many of us have to insist on defining farmers as inclusive of agricultures. And fortunately, our All India Kisan Sangharsha Coordination Committee has defined Kisan as inclusive of agricultural laborers, dairy workers, Adivasis living on forest produce, and fish workers as well. Friends, that's why in the wider definition of Dalits, if we look at individual of these sectors, then we know that they need to be included in the natural resource-based community as a whole, that is to be defined as Kisan. And this movement, whatever transformative, revolutionary, kind of scope and possibilities it has, it must really include the Dalit laborers with great primacy and Dalit women who are facing not just landlessness, but statuslessness. And that is also necessary to be pushed through this movement, which is an opportunity. It is also clear that in the mills and factories, in the today's situation, we see in Madhya Pradesh, where our struggle is on, that in many mills, the casteist approach to get rid of, retrench the Dalit workers who are mostly in contract laborers and also in the departments like security is taking place. And the owners as well as the supervisory staff do not bother to, while following this most casteist attitude, and the Dalit workers therefore have to fight a separate battle within the trade unionization. And that is what we are realizing. So unless every union, like the farmers' movement, decide to give primacy to the Dalit workers within the working class in the particular factory or industry, they will not get their due right to live with dignity. And hence, it is also right to shelter that is denied to the large section of our population, especially the urban poor, where also we see what is happening. The most shelterless people on the footpaths are Dalits, but also in the slum localities. As we have Ghar Bachao, Ghar Banao Andolan in Mumbai, most of the slum dwelling population belong to Dalit and minorities. And there also every movement therefore has to take cognizance of the fact that the Dalits within, or even the Adivasis who come to the cities and megalopolis and then remain in slums in lakhs in Delhi or Mumbai, we have to really be conscious of the caste relationships. Although I must say that the communal violence or the casteist violence is minimum in the slum localities compared to the urban megalopolis, mega cities, and so on. And that is why the anonymity in the cities that was considered as a basis for Gaon Chodo, Shahar Chalo, as was the message through the Ambedkarite movement, now needs to be reverted back. They need to be asserting, and we need to be supporting assertion of the Dalits' rights to resources, whichever sector they may be. And that comes with right to shelter, that comes with right to employment, that comes with right to health and right to education as well. All these are basic human rights. One need not really read out the Charter of 1948 or the United Nations Covenant, such as on economic, social, and cultural rights. It is very clear that when the slums are demolished, as it is happening in Koregaon, on the border of Delhi and Haryana today, with Supreme Court's order, go demolish them because they have been staying on the forest land, which was a vacant land, treeless land, and were staying for 10 to 20 years. And still, the court says that without rehabilitation, you can vacate them, evict them, demolish their houses with the whole of balance that they save and they put into building a house. This same thing had happened in Mumbai when in 2004 and 5, 75,000 houses of the slum dwellers were demolished. We had to say that we are not just slum dwellers. We are workers. We are builders. We are producers. We are distributors. And hence, you cannot survive without our contribution to build cities, not just to decorate them, and to make every service available in the city. And that assertion gives not just the self-empowerment, but also challenge the state that is discriminative in resource distribution in a big way. And hence, in the today's development paradigm, when even the grazing land belonging to the Dalit community in a district like Jalna or Aurangabad in the Marathwada area of Maharashtra is taken away, we must realize that assertion of those resources, not just leaving that to the rural elite community or the rural industrialization, which encroaches upon their resources, even if minimal, that gives them right to life and right to livelihood. That is no solution. We have to stay there and assert those rights. And same is true when the slum is demolished. The slum dwellers must stay back and rebuild the houses as we had done in 2005 in the communities in Mumbai, Maharashtra. How is all this to be responded to? The movements have taken different forms in different decades in India. And in certain situations and phases, like the Dalit Panther movement phase, there was a very radical and strong mass-based approach. And the vision also was getting larger and wider. Even in Tamil Nadu, when the VCK came into being, that political party also took a stance that we want not just the benefits or the positive discriminatory approach, but we want equity and dignity. And they really thought that this can be achieved through social, economic, and political transformation. Now, the society needs to be changed for this, not just the state. As Dr. Pagare has said, it is necessary to educate and build not just a mindset, but a thinking paradigm amidst the society in order that the caste annihilation is reached. But that was not so easy. But VCK and such parties, whenever they get some political space, whether they use that space to the effective extent, that is a question. I think in Tamil Nadu, I have seen whenever the atrocities against Dalit took place, and we approached that area and looked into whether even the Prevention of Atrocities Act was really implemented. Hardly 5% of the cases filed got some result out of it. So merely legal advocacy and legal regime was not certainly capable of turning the battles in favor of the Dalits. But certainly whenever some political parties, as in Tamil Nadu, came out in the front and supported our kind of social intervention, then it made a difference. And that is what was happening in Maharashtra like state earlier, in Bihar like state in India initially, where the Musahars were the most downtrodden community and most oppressed community, most suppressed community with resourcelessness. But is that happening today? In between, when the students' movement really came up in India, after Rohit Vemula's martyrdom, certainly the state was considered as the killer, and the Dalits really rose up. And no doubt many Dalit parties took a position favoring a Dalit movement coming out of it, even a Rohit Act that was proposed. But I think the lockdown really locked this momentum down. And hence it is necessary again to have a pan-India Dalit movement based on what is happening, what is the new form of discrimination and exclusion that is faced by Dalits in various sectors, some of which I have just pointed out. Take education. The new education policy, so-called, is to make us globalized. But no, it is not localized policy. And hence, the local communities like Dalits or the Hilli Adivasis are facing worst. This is a new kind of Brahmanism which needs to be challenged. This will push back the Dalits, especially the Dalit girls, beyond all those limits which even Brahmanism had, and the Manuvadi approach and thoughts that are still existing in the ruling state today, and especially since 2014, when the casteism and communalism has come to the fore and open violence is taking place in the name of caste and religion. It is also necessary to understand that the non-violent satyagrahi approach by Dalits need to take new forms and reject the education policy of the modern times, which is Sanskritized, which is for Sanskritization, which is not for the real socio-economic mobility of Dalits and other oppressed communities. Because this Googleization through the Googleized machines that we are also using in this dialogue is going to exclude the large percentage of the mehnat kash, the toiling masses, and also the natural resource-based communities who cannot really manage with those resources and will not be included with the equality in the universal educational policies, in spite of what our constitution says, free education up to 14 years of age. Same is in health. I will not go in it much, but even during COVID pandemic, we have seen how the Dalits and the natural resource-based communities face the worst. This privatization is another virus which is really killing the state with its responsibility, and the state is killing itself. So it is necessary to not just assert the democratic processes, but also to make the state realize that the Dalit movement will teach them a lesson to be equity-based universal policy makers and not less than that. Instead, they are imposing absolutely anti-Dalit, anti-women, anti-worker laws which need to be fought against. And that's why I would say that join the farmers' movement in the large number. And even if there is need to bring in further change amongst the farmers, which we are always pushing for the women also, to get our status, our role, our space, our contribution recognized in the present farmers' movement. The same thing can and should be done with the Dalits workers in the agriculture sector and also in the working class as a whole. I will only say more of development paradigm which is leading to displacement. Now here, when the huts are demolished or the large dams submerge the villages, we see that after 36 years of our struggle in Narmada, no doubt we have got the house plots and various grants and also land for Dalits and Adivasis. But that was only because we insisted that even the landless must get land in rehabilitation policy. And that had to be fought for from local to global to convince the World Bank. And finally, the World Bank made those inputs, but we had to also make the World Bank leave because we don't want the international financial institutions to rule this country and to bypass the laws of the land. Hence, my dear friends, it is necessary to take up the battle against the development paradigm, which is leading to displacement from livelihoods, displacement from communities, habitats, and whatever natural resources Dalits have maintained in their hands till today. It is also necessary to understand when the unemployment and underemployment is imposed through the lockdown and the pandemic, the Dalits are the worst affected. Hence, the total change in the economic paradigm to make it labor intensive and not higher and modern technology intensive or energy intensive or capital intensive is also one of to be one of our major agenda points today, and for which not just the state, not just the political parties, but the people's politics would really matter, and that must be in struggle as well as in reconstructive work. I would only say that the women cannot be forgotten in any people's movement, and in Dalit movements especially, when we have witnessed what happens in the UP, which is the state where the Bharatiya Janata Party, the rightist party, is in power, and the so-called yogis are working like gundas, using the police force to the maximum. And it is also seen that not just in Hathras, but in Aligarh, in Azamgarh, everywhere, the Dalit women are facing that cumulative iniquity in the form of atrocities against the landless Dalit women. And that's why our symbol of the prioritized class and caste needs to be Dalit landless woman. For them, 1 hectare of land is a must. For them, 1 source of livelihood is a must. For them, the due status and right to live with dignity without any atrocity, with sufficient security is a must. For this, all women's organizations must take up the battle in a united way. So everywhere the alliance is necessary, and these alliances are occurring now, but still we are somewhere yet to create a pan-India movement or the pan-South Asia movement where this focus on the casteist atrocities will come up, like the communal violence is also need to be taken into consideration, and then we can really have the change towards humanity, humanitarian values, framework, and human rights, as Dalit rights are human rights. Thank you so much. I would only say that the politicians also need to be oriented and educated and also challenged, not just the society, but at the societal level, if we have not just civil society groups and organizations, but the mass movement to really ensure that the Dalits are not treated inhumanly, as Professor Pagare said, then only we can really bring down the state from their highest echelons down to earth to look at what is happening to the Dalits even after 7 decades of our independence. And this requires also the global support. I will only say this and stop here. And that international alliance part, I'm sure, must start with the South Asia Alliance, taking into consideration the specificities and the specific situations in every country, which is partly similar and partly different, whether it is Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, or India. And we also have to have a global approach which is against apartheid, which is against the black community facing atrocities, and which is also against the urban poor that is enlarged population in every state, nation state nowadays. And so the United Nations, which is also corporatized, which is also taking the same kind of economic paradigm as symbol of progress, also need to have our interventions. As for the indigenous people and Dalits, there are many conventions and covenants, but the ground level operationalization, its reflection into the laws of every single country in South Asia is still not fully achieved. And implementation of laws is also difficult because the judiciary, as one of the pillars of democracy, is also facing white ant. And that white ant is of the globalized, corporatized politics and economics, which are hands in gloves. And hence, our social movement must challenge all these forces effectively through mass actions, non-violence, but also a widest possible vision of humanitarian goals. Thank you very much. I would not be able to remain in this webinar for a long, but I will certainly be with you in all the action plans that you may come up with. Thank you very much. Sorry if I've taken a longer time. I did not look at my watch.
We may also notice in India a strong trend to represent physical violence, particularly public stripping and rape of Dalit women, is a process of what is often referred as to stripping assertees. Indeed, Dalit voice is a representation of both Dalit struggle and important literary works that have raised consciousness of fight while also participating in that. Despite of your inspiring struggle, Ms. Patkar, you have come a long way. Thank you very much for sharing your perspectives on contemporary India as well as your personal experience there. Thank you.
Let me mention just one thing that is the recent happening. There are almost 1,700 deaths according to us, the organizations which are working with the Safai Karmacharis in Mumbai's Mahanagar Palikas. Our union is there, and also our colleagues in Dasam organization are working with those. The Bezwada Wilson is working with those, and yet the parliament heard just yesterday or day before that no deaths have taken place in the manual scavenging. So this kind of misrepresentation, this kind of false facts, and the Goebbelization, I must say, not just Googleization, Goebbels politics as it was during Hitler's time, Nazi rule, that is still continuing. So we cannot depend only on the so-called pillars of democracy for the Dalits' rights or the other oppressed class rights. And that's why I really look forward to a pan-India movement and not just electoral political steps to be taken. Thank you. Sorry.
Unfortunately, our next speaker, Mr. Degupta, could not join us due to sudden emergency. So our now next speaker would be Dr. Archana Singh. She serves as an assistant professor at Allahabad GB Pant Social Science Institute. She is now focusing on modern caste, gender issues among Dalits, tribes and minorities, particularly the methods used by these women to fight subjugation that is buried in caste, class, gender dynamics. Caste, gender and cultural studies are three of her areas of interest. She is associated with the GB Pant Social Science Institute in Allahabad, is a coordinator of Museum of Ethnography, the Study Center and the Dalit Resource Center. Please, Dr. Archana, take your time and share your thoughts.
So first I would like to thank South Asian Research Institute for Minorities for inviting me and sharing my thoughts. So as the previous speaker already shared that how the gloomy picture is, and there are a lot of atrocities and violence on Dalits on the name of caste, class and gender. But I would like to share some grassroots narratives so that we can feel that there is ray of hope. Things are not as gloomy. They are asserting for these kind of violences, though that is, we are unable to document these assertions because they are momentary, sporadic, sometimes hidden resistance. So it's our inability, we are unable to capture these kinds of resistances. But being a person who is continuously working in field, I am continuously getting the Dalit women's who are asserting against these kinds of impositions and the Abla Naris. So now they are not accepting that kind of oppressed, and so though they are economically weak, they are socially excluded, they are culturally stigmatized, even then, they are asserting their identities and they are working for their fellow beings, their fellow women. So what I am trying to do, my talk is just an attempt to understand the emergence of Dalit women leaders in rural villages. And what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to understand how their given life words help them to attain some sort of political consciousness, subvert the dominant socio-political discourses, and how they are using their caste identities as a tool of assertion and political empowerment of their. So, how they are participating in electoral politics and how they are aspiring for bigger goals. So, I'm trying to put forward a few positive picture, though I'm not denying that exploitation is not there. So Dalit assertion have emerged to rupture mainstream discourse at different levels all over the country from time to time. So we know Dalit movement has its own history, and especially because I'm from UP and I'm talking, my field work is in UP and I'm talking about villages of UP. So UP has a legacy of Kabir, Ravidas, Chutanand, Kashiram, even Mayavati as a political leader. But an Ambedkar background is always with them. So they are worshipping Ambedkar as an icon. And there are so many local heroes, caste heroes, whom they are celebrating. So there lot of things are there through which they are asserting their presence in public spaces. They are celebrating Jayantis, and BSP, in fact, Bahujan Samaj Party, in fact, promoted these kind of celebrations and iconization. So, what though we should admit that there was a strong Dalit movement in Western and Southern India, not in this part of India, UP. And the Dalit literature is also there. Dalit women also are writing now. But Dalit women were never been an important, significant part of that Dalit movement, neither Dalit literature. So what happened? Anyhow, these women were marginalized and they were struggling to get a space in movement and literature book. So even nowadays, Dalit women are writing to expose their marginalities through autobiographies, poetries, stories. So there are a lot of modes through which they are expressing. But the women about whom I am talking, they are not even aware of these kind of dissenting discourses because they are illiterate or semi-literate. So they are not part of these kind of discourses. They have been represented by others, like literate people, like upper caste, to exploited and triply subaltern kind of. In academics we use different kind of terminologies to express their pain, suffering, agony. So the what I have encountered in villages, there is some sort of emergence of Dalit women leaders, though you cannot call them leaders in typical sense, not like very dominating and very articulate and that kind of charismatic personality, like Nehru, Indira Gandhi, but they are real leaders because they are representing their communities. So I have encountered many Dalit women leaders who are staying in the villages of UP. And these women are neither literate nor trained leaders, nor, nor have any political background. But these Dalit women leaders are claiming the political space through different programs. And the one question I would like to, because you must have in your mind how they are coming in politics. So due to protective discrimination means reservation, they are entering into PRIs, Panchayati Raj institutions. They have been nominated to different local bodies in villages because, due to reservation, now presence of women, Dalit women, SC women in a state category, that is must. So they are coming by force. Sometimes they are being pushed by their families, sometimes by upper caste, and they are entering in this. But they are supposed to be only decorative kind of presence there. But when once they enter in that kind of political space, they assert. So this is very interesting kind of a story. A state provided them a space, but they were not supposed to assert there. They have to work in that state given mechanism, but they are asserting, and that is not supposed kind of a structure. And I would like to quote Bell Hooks, black writer. She has said that marginalized needs to use the sites of oppression as a site of resistance, struggle, and negotiation, because marginality is the site that nourishes the capacity of marginal to resist and help to create a new and alternative world. So these women are using villages as a space of resistance and as an alternative world where they can aspire for a new world, where they can aspire for equality. So they are not passive recipients or not neither passive recipients of that kind of oppressive structure, neither they are passive participants in politics. But what they are acting as active political subjects. They are asserting their caste and gender identity. I met a community leader and she said that no one can oppress us now. Well, she is denying that all historical oppression and she is saying that time is over. Now we are efficient enough to answer everyone. So this is the change I am documenting in field. So the changing socio-political circumstances that have forced upper caste and middle class to include them, because due to reserved seats, now upper caste and middle class have to negotiate with their presence. So now their identity is their strength. So what they are how they are claiming because we can reject them ki you are illiterate, you don't have experience. So what how they are claiming their version is we have been brought up in freedom. We have better understanding of the outer world because we have never been that kind of feminine staying under boundaries. So they are saying that our leader emerged from bottom. Baba Saheb, Behenji, they call Mayawati as Behenji. and they feel that they are more than upper caste women or upper caste people to deal with political matters. So now they are, because they have been worked as laborers in fields, so the external exposure, they feel that is their strength, and they have better kind of a understanding of what. So they are better mobilizers, better leaders in for their community women. So they always said ki because they are coming out of boundaries in different roles, so they know ki how to move in village, how to fight with these kind of oppressions. They are physically more, they have more strength. They are not that kind of very shy kind of that notion of very elite kind of women full of feminine values. So they have not been trained in that kind, so these are their strength. So they said ki there no one can, I'm sharing their narratives to give you a feel ki how they are claiming their presence. So one of the women, Kamala, met me in a village, and she said ki now no one dares to stand in front of us. No, they even don't dare to face us because they know that now we have emerged as political leaders, and we are not going to face all kind of oppression which has been part of history. Now they are saying that oppression was history, that is not their present. Though I'm not fully satisfied with their claim. I know data shows ki how many Dalit women have been raped and beaten, naked parades. So there are so many incidents, shameful incidents. But the point is ki without any formal training, they are performing well in political realm. They are trying to celebrate their presence of their heroes, and they are trying to deconstruct the dominant discourse and space, and they are celebrating their own freedom. So these are the ways they are asserting, because in most of the Indian cities, women always feel that they should be accompanied by male for some sort of security, and so they say ki, no, we don't need anyone to protect us, we are strong enough. They encourage their community women to move alone. They organize meetings in public places. They worship Baba Sahib Ambedkar. They sensitize their fellow women about state policies, about their rights, and even the whole process how to access their rights, how to access their claims. So these are the ways how they are mobilizing the fellow women's. Even one very common phenomena I would like to mention here is in BSP, in Bahujan Samaj Party rallies, though last elections BSP faced defeat, even then, even if you will go and attend a rally, you will find ki lot of women participants are there, because these upper caste women, elite women, never go for rallies in public places. They try to avoid those things. But these women used to go in groups, and they celebrate that kind of public engagement, political engagement. So they say ki no one now dare us to tease us. Now we are not ready to suffer the atrocities. They understand their numbers. That is their strength. And they understand the strength of numbers in democracy. So what they are now trying, they are asserting their strength for politics. They are negotiating with different political parties. During rallies, leaders used to depend on Dalit bastis only for the crowd. And now they are quite aware of these kind of politics. So they say that now we are not the part of that crowd. We are not public. We know no one can fool us. We know our strength and we know how we have to move ahead, with whom, with which political party. So they are very strategic, and you will be surprised by their aspirations, because during rallies and political meetings, people used to claim that we will give you free schooling, free food, bijli, pani, sadak, na, electricity, water, sanitation. I was in a meeting and where a woman claimed, no, we can get these things. First and foremost thing we want for our community, that is dignity. So this electricity, water, and all these infrastructural thing we will get. We are striving for dignity. And this is the most important thing which our community is looking for, aspiring for. And no party is trying to give us dignified space in this society. What they are just sharing some sort of very small share of resources, and they want to make us satisfied. But we are aware of this. Now we want a dignified position in this world where we can move freely. Our children can dream about a bright future. So, and they vehemently criticized all kind of appropriation of them, because all of you are part of these kind of discourses. You are associated as an academician or activist. So you must be knowing that about that politics of appropriation, how these right-wing parties and all the parties are trying to appropriate their leaders, their icons. So I was talking to one that rural Dalit women leader. So she was saying that these upper caste people are trying to appropriate our Masihas, Baba Sahab, Buddhas. So she skillfully added that these Brahmins and Kshatriyas, she was talking about upper caste, have tortured us since ancient times. And now when we have gone in the shelter of Lord Buddha, she was talking about that conversion, Ambedkar converted into Buddhism. So she says, she was referring that when we have gone in the shelter of Lord Buddha, they have started claiming that Buddha was incarnation of our Lord Vishnu. So they were quite aware. It's really surprising how they articulate and how they are aware of these kind of appropriation, and they really dare. They know how to question, how to pinpoint the disguised kind of oppression. Though no one dares to now, even in political parties, on public places, if they don't dare to insult them openly, but there are some sort of hidden kind of things where we derogate them, we make them others. No, you are not like that. So they are questioning all the kind of discourses, all kind of labeling. But problem is that why these kind of assertions, resistances are not being part of our academic discourse. This is a very important question. And I always feel that this is so because we have some sort of very structural definitions. So if I'll ask someone, some of my students, to go and document few women leaders, so they won't document these leaders because they have some sort of stereotypical image of leader. So same with that civil service movements, and same with these kind of things. So they have not been documented because of these kinds of our limit. This is our limitation, but they are asserting. And they now what they do, they say कि no one talks about our dignity. So what they are trying to capture power. They are trying to empower their community. They are trying to throw away the derogatory identity imposed upon them. They are aiming for emancipation from all kind of oppressive forces of discrimination based on caste and gender. So they are fighting with caste discrimination and gender both at one plane, and they are celebrating their caste and gender identity in public spaces. And this is the ray of hope, and we must hope that there must be and there will be a bright future for all these rural Dalit untrained women leaders, and they will capture higher positions they are aspiring for. Thank you.
As we observe in India, societal inequality and how caste identity, which is deeply established in Indian culture, surpasses Dalit voices, caste haze also creep into our skins and controls our lives as if it were a crystal. Thank you very much for taking your time and sharing your remarks. I really appreciate that. Final speaker is Ms. Ruchira Gupta. She is the founder president of Apna Aap Women Worldwide. She is a social activist, feminist campaigner and journalist. She is also a professor at New York University and a distinguished scholar at the University of California. She extensively covered women's rights, armed struggles in the northeast of India, caste conflict and minorities issue. She continues to write on sex trafficking and women's rights issue for open democracy. Past Believe CNN, Times of India, The Hindu and The Guardian. Ms. Ruchira Gupta is unable to appear online at this time, but we have an exclusive recording of her remarks on emerging Dalit voices in South Asia. So watch it and listen what she has to say about it.
Namaste. Greetings to the South Asia Institute for Minorities and to Heman Das. Today's discussion is on the emerging Dalit voices and their path to empowerment. I am in New York. I'm a professor at New York University and the founder of Apne Aap Women Worldwide, an organization that works against sex trafficking. I work with Dalits. Dalits are people who are literally, as has been defined in Sanskrit, scattered and broken. In the South Asian caste system, this means they are the people at the bottom of the hierarchy of the caste system. Caste is something which is an occupation which is defined by your birth. It's hereditary. And in that pecking order or hierarchy, Dalits are at the bottom, and they are so crushed that they are broken or scattered. And sometimes people also use the word untouchable to describe Dalits. They also use the word the fifth caste, which is to show that they are actually even out of the caste system of recognized occupations. Traditionally and historically, Dalits have been performing the most menial tasks and the most essential tasks in India and Nepal and Bangladesh and Pakistan and all of South Asia. From cleaning, from agriculture to threshing to leather work to working with meat, even taking care of our dead. In today's COVID times, we have realized how vital this has been a function when we cannot even get into a cremation where we have to fight for space to bury our dead. So Dalits have been performing essential functions, but they have also been oppressed and crushed and made marginalized in our society for thousands of years, so that those who are powerful can control them. They can control their cheap labor and also also they have been sexually exploited so that they can produce cheap labor. I work against sex trafficking, and what I have found is that the majority of those who are trafficked in India and South Asia come from Dalit communities and Dalit castes. And this is because of intersecting inequalities that Dalits suffer from, that sex traffickers can prey upon them. They are poor, they are female, they are from an oppressed caste, mostly Dalits, and of course they are teenagers. And because of all these intersecting inequalities, they are cut off from access to food, clothing, housing, legal protection, and even sustainable and dignified livelihoods. Because of this, sex traffickers come to them and begin to say that please offer your daughter for prostitution, and in return at least you will get some food. Some Dalit communities that I work with have tried to exit systems of prostitution only to be beaten back and told this is your destiny and this is what you have to do. Upper caste gangs have actually come in some villages where I work, and they have chopped off the ears of Dalit women and their family members or raped them mercilessly and repeatedly, saying your destiny is to be in prostitution and you cannot get out. This is your caste destiny. So the sexual availability of some Dalit communities has become predestined according to upper caste gangs. And even in spite of this, when India became independent, and thanks to the work of many social reformers like Mahatma Phule, who was a social reformer in 17th century India and Maharashtra, who said that no human being has to be at the bottom of any hierarchy. All human beings are created equal and must have access to any kind of occupation, land, and dignity that any other human being has. And he began by him and his wife Savitribai Phule began by educating women and children from Dalit communities so that education would become a tool for their empowerment. This was continued by Dr. Ambedkar, who himself was educated in Columbia University. He contributed to writing the Constitution of India, which made sure that when India became independent, the idea of inequality was eradicated, and Article 14 promised not just right to life, but other articles in the Constitution promised that people will be treated as equal and not be discriminated against for their occupation, for their birth, for their caste. And then India launched a huge program over many, many years, the last 70 years, for affirmative action through policies for the uplift of Dalits. One of the most important programs you may have known about is education quotas in schools and colleges, education quotas in government jobs. Along with that, we also had something called Prevention of Atrocities Against Dalits, against Harijans Act, because Mahatma Gandhi named Dalits as Harijans, which means children of God. And the reason he did that was because he wanted people to understand that all of us are godlike in our own unique way, just as Dalits are. And he said that no occupation is polluting, from cleaning toilets to working in the fields, to cooking, to working with leather. And to prove this, he himself did the most what is considered by upper caste people as polluting tasks, which only Dalits should do. Gandhi himself went ahead and did these tasks, like making leather slippers, which he gifted to Callan Black when he was in prison in South Africa. He also worked in the fields, sowing seeds, harvesting. He did tailoring in his ashrams. He cleaned toilets on a daily basis in his entire life, which again many upper caste people will think is a task only for Dalits. So he said that no task is polluting and no human being is less than any other human being. We all are children of God. And that is the progress that India was trying to make all these years. and has not been able to address fully. As we know, in today's India, Dalit women are routinely raped across the country as a way to keep them down and punish them if they try to get out of their caste system, if they try to marry on their own across caste, if they try to find occupations across caste, they are punished. Dalit men are routinely lynched for trying to get out of the oppressive occupations they are in or the marginalized status they are in. We still hear stories about men and women who are punished, hung from trees, beaten up, made to ride on donkeys and shamed if they try to drink water from the village well, if they try to buy a house in what is considered an upper caste colony, if they try to marry across religion and caste. And yet, they persevere, and we find that, two Indias coexist right now. There is the reform-minded, progressive, modern India, which is trying to do away with any kind of discrimination based on caste. And there is the regressive, fascist, hierarchical India, which still tries to keep caste intact. And this struggle has been going on for about 5,000 years, ever since India became a civilization. As I speak right now, we know that this needs to be eradicated. But one of the reasons that authoritarianism has visited India, in spite of India's efforts to decolonize itself, to become independent after our freedom struggle led by Gandhi, is that we never confronted the hierarchy of caste. And that helped us normalize hierarchy itself and keep our feudal system intact, in which we thought that we should have a strong leader, a king-like man, as the head of the country. And instead of thinking of ourselves as citizens, we began to think of ourselves as subjects. And of course, how is caste created? How is it replicated? Caste is replicated and created through women's bodies, because only women have the ability to produce and reproduce. And upper caste men try to control our bodies, both of upper caste women and of lower caste and oppressed caste women, because one group of women, the upper caste women, just become labor for them in their homes as domestic workers, as rearer of children. And lower caste women, of course, become cheap labor themselves. And the control of our bodies also means the control of the caste systems, because only we can reproduce through our bodies and explain who is upper caste, who is lower caste, who the father is, what his genes were. And gender digs a trench into our brain into which all other inequalities fall, because it's at home that we first learn that there is a hierarchy at all. We learn it's all right for one class of human beings to order and one to obey, one to get paid for their work and one to not get paid for the work, one to give approval for the work we do and one to seek approval for the work we do. And this hierarchy that we normalize at home also makes us normalize a strong head of the family as the only power structure that we know. And whether he takes good or bad decisions, right or wrong decisions, we believe that is the way things exist. So when we go out into the world, we have already normalized hierarchy, and into that normalization and understanding of hierarchy as something normal in the world, we let caste, race, and other hierarchies fall into place very easily. We accept it, and then when we go out to vote, we begin to long for the same power structure that we grew up with at home. So we begin to long for a strong head of the family who will take decisions right or wrong, and we begin to behave like menial people and subjects rather than citizens, which is why today India is being approached and is normalizing the hierarchy of feudalism in the form of fascism, with an authoritarian leader who misled us during the entire COVID crisis and has cost us 4 million lives. He said he chose superstition over science. He chose to treat COVID as a law and order problem rather than a public health crisis by running the whole lockdown as a police curfew rather than empowering hospitals and health workers. And of course, he chose to just talk about the glory of upper caste Hindutva, saying that our genes are better, the supremacist idea of the upper caste genes being better than other genes. He attacked Muslims and Tabligis and all of that to say that they were spreading COVID. And today we know that there was a huge Kumbh Mela in northern India, which became a super spreader of COVID. And today we had a fatal second wave. We are scared about the third wave. And all of these things are interlinked with the fact that Dalits are not empowered and the fact that women's bodies are controlled to recreate and reproduce caste. So to empower Dalits, we first have to empower women, and we have to look at what Periyar spoke about in the self-respect women movement, where he said that the control of women's bodies have to be changed, women have to be emancipated, there has to be intercaste and interfaith marriage for us not to normalize any hierarchy, including caste.
Ms. Ruchira Gupta has spoken brilliantly on this subject. I thank her for her recorded video. Now it's time to ask some questions. Participants, you can ask now.
Do India's media sources correctly report on the countless crimes against Dalits that occur on a regular basis? How many cases have been reported ideally? And how many have been successfully resolved?
I cannot tell you the exact numbers, but what I can share that there is underreporting, regular underreporting. Most of the cases are not reported due to caste dynamics, due to the upper caste pressures, political pressures, and even state is not interested in documenting these kinds of atrocities because that affects their performance. So state always want to pose themselves as a good performer. So if they will report all the cases, but media has very important role. Sometimes media highlights some issues and these cases got some sort of justice. That is not always the appropriate justice which they were aspiring for, but they got some sort of justice. But what I was trying to present in my talk, what I'm trying to propose a new proposition that we are documenting the oppressions, but we should document the potential, their resistance also, because that is very important and that is the only ray of hope. Because the state will help, but they have to assert, and they are asserting. So if we will document their assertion, so then we can understand the state politics, how state is trying to erase all these kind of negatives as for posing itself as a good performer. So we have to understand this upper caste politics, this state dominance, and all the dominant groups who are collectively, though social media and mainstream media, both are playing most of the time, many times a positive role. But this, social media and mainstream media is, on the other hand, mobilizing the oppressors also. That is under the platform to mobilize oppressors. So it is not always speaking for the oppressed communities, Dalits. They are mobilizing oppressed. They are justifying their that person was going where the bridegroom was on the following the Hindu tradition, that Godi Charna, and we were not ready to support this kind of thing. So there are two kind of things, but obviously media is trying to document and some people are getting justice due to that. So thank you.
I appreciate your speech, Ms. Archana Singh. It's a pleasure to ask questions from you. From 13th century through the period of Phule and Ambedkar, Brahmin participation in the anti-caste struggle can be traced. However, history shows that these Brahmins have either minimum sympathizer of anti-caste concern or so-called reformer without giving up their spiritual and financial privileges. Brahmins who are against Brahminism have never worked with members of their own caste, whose mind are dominated by caste and whose are blind to the privileges they inherit. What is the reason? Do you believe there can be Brahminism without Brahmins?
Brahminism is not nothing to do with Brahmins as caste. Brahminism is a tradition. Even sometimes these oppressed communities follow the same sort of Brahminism if they have some sort of economically well off, some power position. So first because this is this oppression, this power dynamics, it is always there. And where there's, as Foucault has well said, where there's power, there's resistance. So this Brahmanism is nothing but what in case of India, particularly in India, what is happening, we have a legacy of Vedas and religion is backing this kind of discrimination, exclusion, and that is the culture of Brahmanism, nothing to do with Brahmins. And this culture of Brahmanism is trying to justify these kinds of violences, oppressions, exclusions, othering. Because we have already documents like Vedas, Upanishad, Puranas. So this is the point where they have some sort of backing. But there is alternative resistance also, like Kabir, Ravidas, they are also there. But Brahminical politics try to derogate them as low folk. Folk is nothing very elite. So elite notion is Vedas and they follow that, and these Dalits getting birth from the foot of Brahma, so they deserve that kind of discriminatory practices. So there are a lot of things that justify these kind of oppressions.
Thank you very much to all the speakers and participants. To conclude this online session, I would like to invite Dr. Khuram, the Director of South Asia Research Institute for Minorities.
Thank you, Heman. It is wonderful to be joined by such a brilliant group of people. Professor Dr. M.S. Pagare, Ms. Medha Patkar, Dr. Archana Singh, and Professor Ruchira Gupta. Our speakers presented us with a diverse array of insights on the theme. And before the concluding remarks, on behalf of South Asia Research Institute for Minorities, I would like to quickly highlight the key points presented by the learned panel. According to Dr. Pagare, Dalits are at the bottom of Hindu caste system, and despite laws to protect them, they continue to face widespread discrimination in India. Unfortunately, the Indian government, which is made up of upper caste, has successfully persuaded the international community that caste discrimination is an internal cultural issue, when the truth is that it has an impact on how the country is run. According to Medha Patkar, the majority of Dalit in India are not registered in official record and do not receive legal assistance or funding from the officials to help their family. Dr. Archana described how we see social injustice and how caste identity, which is strongly rooted in Indian culture, silences Dalit voices. Women from Dalit community have been particularly hard hit in recent years. They face discrimination not simply because of their gender, but also because of religious, social, and cultural systems that places them at the bottom of the social ladder. Dalits, she believed, have the potential to become a powerful and beneficial force for change in India in the next decade, particularly if they can organize themselves across linguistic and religious boundaries. Professor Gupta focuses on how dominant castes have used violence against Dalit women and girls, including rape and gang rape, as a weapon to oppress them and perpetuate systematic gender and caste hierarchies. She told us that according to a report by the National Crime Record Bureau of India, at least 10 Dalit women are raped every day, and their vulnerability to rape has grown by 44% in the previous 10 years. So to conclude, from humiliation to lynching, various forms of devastation and ferocity against the Dalit population have been carried out constantly over the past 5,000 years. And whenever Dalit want equality, parity, and humanism on an equal footing with others, the caste-based society goes irrational. Though social reformers' efforts and legal measures are commendable, the forces of status quo and prejudice continue to exist. It is a source of shame for us that in the 21st century we are still dealing with untouchability and animosity between high and poor caste. It is important to note that laws are not effectively enforced owing a lack of political will and Dalit awareness. The prevalent narrative plainly implies that Dalits have no rights to ask for equal access to worship sites, to demand equal pay, to own property, to accumulate assets, to hold leadership protests, or to fall in love with so-called upper caste and marry them. The dominant narratives that tend to legitimize verbal and physical violence on Dalits have been extensively exposed, and their underlying contradictions have exploded. A multitude of concepts mean to conceal latent intents and hidden objectives have come to light, and the Dalits have seen right through them. Following a series of attacks on Dalits, they have responded with counter narrative that has astonished many notably repressive castists and caste mindsets. The Dalit movement's major goal is to achieve equality, justice, identity, and humanism. The Dalit struggle is against Brahmanism, not Brahmins, because Brahmanism is the underlying cause of the Dalit movement. On political, economic, and social reasons, untouchability has been decreased, but social justice and ill treatment of one caste by another has not been eradicated. So human-made barrier, divisions, and roadblocks will have to be eliminated, and the number of Dalit asserting themselves is increasing. They are fighting a battle against public humiliation, flogging, and a slew of other concerns. For the untouchable, the Dalit resistance and assertion have dug large holes and caused fractures in the Hindutva wall. The resistance and assertion of Dalits in gaining traction in a variety of ways and forms across the region. Now, Dalits are becoming aware of everything: politics, movies, the media, and music are just few of the field. There is not a single field where a Dalit does not exist. Currently, the Dalit framework of disclosure has developed discursively as a powerful visible form of protest writing against a spate of exploitation in both socio-politically materialistic and discursive realities. Dalit disclosure at present has emerged as a body of various forms of writing, witnessed through the varieties of literature, such as autobiographies, live writings, novels, dramas, folk songs, poems, and so on. And it instills in the mind of the Dalits a sense of self-dignity, self-identity, and self-awareness, as well as sense of mission, goals, and objective. The freedom and emancipation of Dalit is the fundamental goal of Dalit literature. Dalit Bahujan social and political reformers, including the Baba Sahib Bhimrao Ambedkar, never restricted Dalit politics to electoral politics or gaining political power. So in reality, he defined Dalit politics as the concurrent construction of public spaces, and there are two key aspects of Dalit politics. One, the construction of public spaces at various levels for which electoral politics, reservation, protest movement, text production, and celebration of Dalit history were used as means. Second, not just examining the untouchable and victims, but also questioning and unraveling the oppressors' techniques, such as ruling castes and the caste structures diversified reproduction. Thus, the most important element of Dalit politics is the establishment and growth of the Dalit public sphere, which is the future history of Dalit politics. So in the end, I would like to express my sincere thanks to all of our speakers once again, and look forward for their ongoing support, including but not limited to article submissions, joint researches, and intellectual conversations at this platform, advocating for the rights of minorities in the region. May God bless us all.